The International Society of Fire Service Instructors has a long and successful history of providing quality training for the professionals of the fire service. Our curriculum has spanned generations and often challenged ideologies. We're excited to expand our wealth of knowledge with our brothers and sisters of the law enforcement sector. Today, we ask you to take home these simple skills and join our efforts to create a safer fire scene for our communities, fire departments, and law enforcement officers.
Today, we would like to spend a few moments talking about safe law enforcement operations on the Fireground, implementing access, rescue, and control. As firefighters and police officers, we have a long history of responding to the same incidents together. However, it is often apparent that neither of us has received much background or training about the other's profession outside of what we may have seen on Chicago Fire or Cops. The ISFSI's intention is to provide educational materials that will serve as a resource to our law enforcement friends who are working on the Fireground. The ISFSI Safe Law Enforcement Operations on the Fireground series will ensure everyone goes home. This training is a result of recent research by Underwriters Laboratories and the National Institute for Standards and Technology on modern-day fires and how both our constructed environment and our furnished environments have changed over the past 30 years. This research has primary focus on fire growth and ventilation management. Fires are burning faster than ever before due to changes in modern furnishings. As more air is added through opening doors and breaking windows, the fire grows larger. The byproducts of fire today are more carcinogenic and toxic than ever before. Breathing hot fire gases or hydrogen cyanide can be fatal, but let's not forget the carcinogenic effects later in life. Oxygen, heat, and fuel are the necessary ingredients for most fires. As police officers, the only one of these you will most likely have the ability to control is the limitation of oxygen by closing doors or controlling doors and refraining from breaking windows.
Housing portable? Housing portable on air.
Can't breathe. On April 6, 2014, in New York City, 2 police officers arrived at the scene of a Brooklyn apartment building before responding fire units. They did not stand around waiting, but rather moved toward the reported fire on the 13th floor of the high-rise multiple dwelling. The conditions visible from the outside of the structure did not accurately represent high heat and smoke conditions that existed on the fire floor. As officers arrived at the 13th floor and exited the elevator, they were met with heavy smoke and high heat conditions. They attempted to exit the area, but were overcome by smoke. Arriving FDNY units moved quickly to the 13th floor, located and removed the 2 officers, but both officers were transported to the hospital in critical condition. Sadly, one officer succumbed to his injuries 3 days later. The other officer remained hospitalized for an extended period of time. In the days following the fire, the NYPD began a thorough review of its current procedures and the training that their officers were receiving regarding response to structural fires. The department's actions were aggressive and comprehensive as it sought to provide policy that was realistic, effective, and provided for the safety of its members.
Let's start by looking at the ISFSI Safe Law Enforcement Operations on the Fireground with implementing ARC, or Access, Rescue, and Control, in your police department. Police officers frequently respond to and at times find themselves arriving first at the scene of a structural fire. When this happens, you find yourself in a very difficult spot. With little or no fireground training and almost no protective equipment, police officers must make a decision to either stand by and wait for the fire department or act to save a life. Obviously, a difficult decision considering the circumstances. So let's start with access. Access refers to vehicle placement. This applies to all around a scene, not just your police car. Make sure that you and other arriving officers position squad cars in a way that leaves room for the fire apparatus that will be arriving, provide for a safe roadway scene for the firefighters, and that the police car does not block any fire hydrants that may be in the vicinity of the fire. It's imperative that both the front of the building and the fire hydrant have easy access for fire apparatus. Most engine companies carry between 500 and 1,000 gallons of water, and when you take into consideration the average fire attack hose flows between 150 and 200 gallons per minute, there's only 2 to 3 minutes of water. Another part of access is to control the civilians who might be trying to enter the fire building that's on fire. Once the civilians are out, we need to keep them out. One breath of the superheated fire gases and smoke can kill them. As an officer on the Fireground, one of your most important roles is to control civilians. It is helpful to obtain information from them like how the fire started, where the fire is in the structure, and if there is anyone left inside. If they state their baby is inside, try to clarify if it is a human or a pet. There have been documented cases of firefighters thinking they were looking for a child when they were actually looking for a pet.
As we move into the rescue portion of the ARC acronym, the first consideration for the officer is scene size up. One of the most important things police officers can do on the fire scene before the arrival of the fire department is size up. A good size up will set the tone for the entire incident. Is smoke showing, a little smoke showing, or is there fire showing? Does it smell like burnt food, burning wood, or does it have a chemical smell? The prevalence of petroleum-based fuels used in the modern homes, along with the energy-efficient features in homes, has created a firefighting environment different than that of the 1970s. Modern fuels release more energy and consume more oxygen than the fuels of the years past, creating what is called a vent-limited fire. This situation occurs when the fire only needs more oxygen and can develop rapidly when fresh air is introduced into the environment. Note the volume of observed fire. Just because nothing is visible from the exterior does not mean that there is a small fire or no fire in the interior. Are there reports of trapped people? Are there credible witnesses on scene? Risk versus reward. Are observed conditions so severe that the occupants still inside are likely beyond saving? Risk a lot to save a lot versus risk a little to save little. Is it an occupied residential structure or is it a locked commercial or vacant structure? What is the fire department's estimated time of arrival? Are personnel close? Can you hear them? If so, it may be better to stay out, meet them, and give them information you have gathered. Remember the makeup of your uniform. It is not Nomex or fire resistant. In some cases, it is polyester or nylon, which melts fast and may cause very painful burns.
With this in mind, the following tactical considerations should be used by law enforcement officers arriving before the fire department. Limit fresh air to the fire by closing doors and avoid breaking windows. Although it is not recommended, if you feel that entering a burning building to search for victims is critical, use a vent enter isolate search method by entering a space and immediately closing the door between you and the fire. This is essential to preventing violent fire growth. Think of a burning home as a wood stove. The more air you provide by opening the dampers, the hotter the fire will become. The less air you provide by closing the dampers will reduce the intensity of the fire. The same concepts apply to a burning home. It is important to understand that temperatures can increase by several hundred degrees throughout the home, simply by opening a door or a window. Your fire department is responsible for timing the openings in a building with the immediate application of water. Another option you have is to use your fire extinguisher to extinguish the fire. Remember that it will only be effective in the incipient or growth stage of the fire, and you will want to be back far enough from the fire as to not place yourself in harm's way.
Here are the top 10 do's for police officers on the Fireground, courtesy of the Fire Department New York and the New York Police Department. First, verify the address. Second, make sure the fire department is responding. Determine the fire location in the building. Obtain information by questioning everyone present at the incident. Advise the police department dispatch if you are entering the building, and make sure that they advise fire department dispatch immediately. Close all doors behind you. Closed doors can find fires. Do have an escape plan. Consider a secondary means of egress. Check the floor layout on the floor below the fire. Use the wall as a guide and count doors from the stairway so you can find the stairway door on your return. Leave a member at the door to the fire area to guide you back, and never enter the fire floor alone. Don't block the front of the building with police vehicles. Don't block hydrants. Use driveways or bus stops. Don't use elevators. Don't go above the lowest level of the fire. Do not ventilate. Don't break the glass or leave doors open. Don't stay inside longer than absolutely necessary. Don't expect conditions to remain the same as when you entered. They will change quickly and often. Don't remain in a building after the fire department arrives and begins its operation. Don't attempt to stand and carry victims from the fire area. If in high heat, stay low to the floor and drag the victims to safety. Don't assume all windows can be opened from inside, as you can end up trapped. Thank you for participating in the ISFSI Safe Law Enforcement Operations on the Fireground. Please be sure to take advantage of other resources related to this curriculum and training topic, including the lesson plan, the quick drill, the PowerPoint presentations, the sample standard operating guidelines, and the web-based training program. Please don't hesitate to reach out to the ISFSI if you have questions or you need assistance in getting this program implemented in your department. Thanks again and stay safe.